welcome to the Why We See Movies podcast. I'm your host, Ron Howden. Joining me today, as always, we've got Darren.
Hello.
And Paul.
Ahoy, hoy.
And Ivan. So today we're going to be talking about War for the Planet of the Apes, starring Andy Serkis and Woody Harrelson. Later on, we'll do our Rant and Rave segment. But first, let's see what's going on inside the entertainment world with...
You, on the mark!
Hey, boys.
What's up?
Hey,
How are you?
Aces, you?
Oh, pretty good. We haven't been together for a while. Good to see everybody.
Wow.
Yeah, you too.
To our listeners out there, sorry about last show's audio problems. Spider-Man Homecoming 1. We hate when that happens, and we try to avoid it as much as possible. We had some audio issues with some bad cables that we just bought less than 8 months ago, and we're already having problems with. So let me call out the makers of the shoddy equipment. Anybody looking to buy microphone cables by a company named Pile Pro, avoid them. They're junk.
They're a pile of
For
crow.
sure. They listed these microphone cables as being used by musicians. You know,
Not good
we're sitting
musicians.
around at a table. We're not swinging these around like Roger Daltrey. They should last a little bit longer than 8 months.
Yeah.
Anyways, I get that off my chest. And from last show, I made a minor mistake. The Scarface remake that is being made isn't being made by Warner Brothers. It's Universal Studios who's in charge of that Scarface.
I thought the original, I was going to say, was Warner Brothers.
I think actually the first one was in the 31 was produced by Howard Hughes. So,
Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I don't know.
It could have been independent then.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right. And to catch up with some sad news, there was a few celebrity deaths that we would be remiss not to mention. The first one I want to talk about is a character actor I really enjoyed. His name was John Hurd. He died at the age of 72. You guys,
John, i.e. the dad from Home Alone, Hurd.
Yeah.
right, that's probably what he's best known for. When I think of John Hurd, I always think of Big. And
yeah.
the I don't get it scene. I don't get it.
Mhm.
You know, and when he's saying someone just doesn't come into a meeting and say bugs.
Yeah.
He's really good in that movie.
He's a great character actor. He had a good, fairly recent supporting part on The Sopranos
Right.
and Battlestar Galactica reboot series. He was also in.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, he had 80 credits. He was in a
Tons,
lot of stuff.
yeah.
Good actor,
Very
will
good
be
actor.
missed. And, of course, George Romero, King of the Zombies, died at the age of 77. I think we all have seen a George Romero movie or two in our lives.
Yeah. Definitely a legend, redefined, or defined a genre, really. I mean, for
Every
better or
zombie
worse.
movie owes a debt to George Romero to some extent.
Absolutely. And if you hate zombie movies, you have nobody to blame anymore.
Right.
If you hate zombie movies, check out the original Night of the Living Dead because it's kind of a masterpiece.
Yeah, it's still fantastic and great, glorious black and white.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it came out about 67. It's
67, 68, something.
Yeah, one of the great midnight shows of all time. And,
Yeah, someone screwed up and it's in the public domain and has been for decades, so
exactly.
you can get a copy cheap easily.
Mm-hmm. Not a very good copy, unfortunately.
No, yeah.
Have you guys seen any of his other movies?
You know, I've
besides the
never
zombie ones?
seen Day of the Dead, and I've always heard good things about it. But Dawn of the Dead, of course.
Dawn of the Dead is probably the one that I saw first as a kid. That's the one that takes place in a shopping mall.
Yeah.
I remember they were kind of endurance tests for me as a kid, like how gory can a movie be, but I'd still watch it.
Yeah.
Those movies were always pushing the limits of that.
And some recent ones like Land of the Dead, he's kind of brought back, tried to add a little twist on it here and there. I never saw The Crazies.
The Crazies is pretty great.
I saw the recent remake of The Crazies, and I really enjoyed that. So I'd like to see the original Romero version.
I think that's his best film outside of Night of the Living Dead, I would
Really?
say. Yeah. He did a really crazy movie called Night Riders with Ed Harris, with kind of a motorcycle group
Never saw
who do jousting from medieval times. It's a wild, crazy movie. But,
Sounds good. Put it on my list.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, so that was too bad. And very sad about another one. Martin Landau.
Yeah, for sure.
Great
Yeah.
actor, died at the
Legend.
age of 89.
Love Martin Landau.
Was this guy in every great movie? North by Northwest, Ed Wood, Crimes and Misdemeanors, Tucker, Sleepy Hollow, The Majestic, Rounders, City of Ember was a recent one I really enjoyed. On TV, he was in The Twilight Zone, Mission Impossible, The X-Files, The Simpsons, Entourage.
Yeah.
That's quite a career.
And I recently
list.
reviewed his film Remember, which
Right,
the Adam McGowan
exactly,
film, which
right.
was very good. And he gave a fantastic performance.
First thing that put him on my radar was X-Files, and right from that, he's got such a presence on screen that you have no choice but to pay attention to him. And yeah, like you mentioned, Ed Wood and the others, it's if he's in it, you're paying attention to him.
Yeah.
Well-deserved supporting Oscar for Ed Wood.
Yeah.
Beat out Samuel Jackson for Pulp Fiction. I think he had the better performance.
Deserved, yeah.
Fantastic.
You guys know I'm a Hitchcock worshiper, so North by Northwest, he is absolutely absolutely fantastic.
He says like maybe 5 words in the whole movie.
Yeah,
He's
and his presence is just so cold and chilling, and it's incredible.
Yeah, one of the great actors, character actors. I'll miss him dearly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, in other news, Game of Thrones creators David Benioff and D.B. Weiss have announced what their next show is going to be. It's going to be called Confederate, which is going to be set in an alternate timeline where the southern states have successfully seceded from the Union and given rise to a nation where slavery has remained legal and become a modern institution. What do you guys think of that?
That sounds very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds a little bit like Man in the High Castle.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
Well, they had some pretty good source material to work with for Game of Thrones,
Right.
so I don't know who's going to be writing this. Mm-hmm. If there is any source material
No, it
or
sounds
not.
like it's an original idea.
All original.
and already facing a ton of controversy for that.
Anytime that you're going to be treading on the ground of slavery, you're probably going to run into something.
Especially going the other way.
I don't know how this would play in the southern states. They might love it, no matter how they're portrayed.
Well, what's the old adage? That Hollywood's been apologizing for the North winning the Civil War ever since the 1930s, so I don't know. Maybe this is the ultimate. Mm-hmm. Okay, South, this is what you wanted.
There's already shows on TV right now like Handmaid's Tale that are obviously not dealing directly with slavery of a race, but slavery of a people in an alternate timeline. So it sounds interesting to me. Like if another show can do it that well, having these creators behind another similar but different idea.
Should we not make movies about slavery or that contain slavery of any kind? Of course not.
We don't want in a science fiction type.
Yeah, it's a serious subject, and if they tackle it well, then I think it can add a lot to the discussion of why slavery is obviously awful.
Right. It's not the creators of Full House making this.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones. I expect it to be taken quite seriously.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So expect the main character to be killed off in the first season?
Probably.
Who knows? They'll keep that sort of bait and switch going.
Game
of Thrones is so famous for.
But then again, for Game of Thrones, he was what was in the books.
I'm sure that they have learned a lot by working on Game of Thrones, and they're much smarter guys than they were beforehand. And
hopefully they don't have the "we can do no wrong" attitude, because that would possibly hurt the show.
Also, that daring approach could also benefit the show too.
Yeah, maybe.
Anyways, it should be exciting. Yeah. Of course, this is we still have a few years away. They're still hacking away.
Busy.
Not to get into it at all, but the first episode was so amazing. Oh my god.
Oh yeah.
Agreed.
Wow. Okay, in other news, Noah Hawley, speaking of showrunners, a guy I really like, he did Fargo and Legion, wants to make a Doctor Doom movie. You guys heard this?
I have.
Yeah, I have.
Oh my god. I really like this guy and I like his other shows, but I have absolutely zero interest in this. I don't know how many times I have to say that, there's only one way to do Doctor Doom and the Fantastic Four, and it's with Marvel Studios. So I don't know what anybody could be thinking. Why do a Doctor Doom movie without the Fantastic Four? I guess if they're doing a Venom movie at Sony, why not do a Doctor Doom movie at Fox?
And if this is related to the rumored Kitty version of Fantastic Four, or more aimed at the younger audience.
It didn't mention anything about that.
But I'm just curious, if they are trying to create an expanded universe, a movie about Doctor Doom should be completely tonally dark and not at all child-friendly at all.
Yeah, especially if they go into his history.
That's why I'm thinking with Noah Hawley behind it, just like he did with Legion, and having absolutely no reference to the X-Men. He might do a Doctor Doom movie and just completely forget the fact that the Marvel Universe exists, and just do a story on, what country is he from? Latvian child who grows up to become emperor. It could be his totally own take.
True. I was instantly excited and disheartened. I saw the headline Doctor Doom movie and hope against hope that Marvel somehow had the rights. And the minute I read the rest of the details, I was very disheartened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, every comment board you always see is just no, terrible, awful.
Yeah. If reviews are positive, if the initial reactions are good, but immediate reaction is no.
Three Fantastic Four movies failed, so time to reboot with Doctor Doom, I guess.
Yeah.
Seems like a giant no bother.
Okay. And Darren, do you have anything for us this week?
Would anyone like to play a game of guess what movie my dad was really talking about?
Yeah!
Oh, this is different.
This is going to be a really easy one, I think, guys. I know it's going to be a really easy one, but comical nevertheless. You'll get it from the first clue, I'm sure, when my dad told me, or he brought up in conversation somehow the movie Marooned.
Castaway?
You got it.
I beat you, Ivan.
If you're going to get Castaway wrong, you might as well call it Marooned.
For sure.
At least it was close.
It was close. You had the right idea, anyways.
There was a movie called Marooned.
I'm sure there was at some point.
I think 68, 69. Gregory Peck's in it, with some astronauts being trapped in space.
Okay, maybe that's what my dad was talking about. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I made a mistake.
Yeah, you had
It's nothing to do with Tom Hanks.
right.
Sorry, Dad.
Guess what movie my son was talking about?
Yeah, that was an easy one, but at least Ivan didn't get it.
Well, screw you.
Yeah. All right, shall we move on to our feature review?
Sure.
Let's do it.
I did not start this war. I offered you peace. I showed you mercy. But now you're here to finish us off. For good.
All of human history has led to this moment. The irony is we created you. And nature has been punishing us ever since. This is our last stand. And if we lose, it will be a planet of apes.
War for the Planet of the Apes was directed by Matt Reeves and written by Mark Baumbach. It stars Andy Serkis, Woody Harrelson, Steve Zahn, Toby Kebbell, Karen Konoval, Terry Notary, and Amaya Miller. The plot? Struggling to maintain a fragile peace between the apes and man, Caesar finally reaches his breaking point and begins a one-ape vendetta against the leader of the human army. I should mention that Darren hasn't seen War for the Planet of the Apes, so he'll be stepping aside and come back for the Rant and Rave section. Why don't we talk about what we think of the franchise as a whole and then what we think of the new movie? I'll begin. I loved Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Kind of took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting an Apes movie to be quite that good and quite that smart. Really set up the next one, Dawn, which was pretty great. And this movie, I like quite a bit too. I think overall, as trilogies go, this is pretty solid. I think there's not a bad movie in them. All of them work really well. This one might not have built up to the grandiose climax that I might have wanted from this trilogy. It's kind of a little different of a movie than I thought it would be, but I still really enjoyed it. Paul, what'd you think?
I will echo a lot of what you just said. I was surprised by the first one. I loved it. Loved the second one as well. The titles, for some reason, always confuse me. I always misname them. It's because I always think Dawn should be the first one
right.
And whatnot.
And
so,
yeah, Rise should follow the Dawn.
Rise should follow the Dawn. So, but yeah, I loved the first two. The thing I appreciated about them is, I mean, I always talk about how I'm such a visual person, and they look great. Like, we talk about...
The apes, you mean?
Yeah, the apes look great. Yeah. The look itself. Right. Like, everything looks so lifelike. Like, you buy into everything. You believe Caesar's there, and Andy Serkis does such a great job capturing the character and bringing him to life. James Franco, which is, quite honestly, an actor that I don't typically like, he was really good in the first one. Thing I like about the franchise too is it's usually smart and it doesn't do the cliched stereotypical thing. It doesn't go down the road that you're expecting it to. So I really like the first two. The third one I thought maybe didn't do that as much. I thought it looked spectacular. There was maybe a few kind of weaker cliched moments, but ultimately I thought it was a satisfactory ending to a really strong trilogy.
Oh, I love this series. All three movies. Holy hell, they did a great job. I love the first one, really hooked me in. Second one, even better. And the third one, there were some things that I would have wanted to be a little better. It surprised me because the war thing title. I thought it was going to go a completely different way in the way it was advertised.
It's very misleading.
Yeah, to where he went, but I still thought he did an amazing job. Wow, there were some really good emotional spots that actually hit me while I was watching this movie, and just so well done.
That's the thing about these movies is
you care about them,
and you actually root against
between
the
these
humans.
apes are as compelling and realistic as anything on humans that we've seen on screen lately.
But it's like I can't even remember a recent movie with humans where the relationships were this strongly done in a movie between characters.
And
Just
it's one thing
so
I
well
think
done.
I think the franchise is smart and brave to have you actually cheer against humans, not necessarily against humanity. But you look at a series like Transformers is a bad example,
but
it's
a perfect example.
You know, something, the human aspect of it is actually what you're there for the Transformers. It's called Transformers. You want to invest in these robots, but they throw humans into it way too much. Whereas this, you gravitate totally towards the apes and you're rooting for them. And I thought that was a very brave choice.
Oh, definitely. I agree. I did root for them. I wanted them to win because they were so well done, because they showed them having feelings, having family, building a community, and showing people just being more animals than the animals. It was great.
One thing you said, Paul, I should have mentioned it at the beginning, was Andy Serkis. I mean, I think the whole trilogy kind of rests on his performance as Caesar, and boy, is he really good in this. I mean, one day this man is going to get an Oscar nomination.
But it's ridiculous he hasn't gotten one for these movies. It's just so ridiculous that just because it's motion capture that they're just not giving it to him.
But the problem with that, and this is a huge debate, there's so much more that goes into his performance. And I mean, a lot of it is him and truly is him captured. Like Matt Reeves painstakingly sits and makes sure that the animators are capturing all the characteristics of Andy Serkis's face and all of his emotions and inflections. But it's kind of a gray area, but you're right, he does amazing work in this.
But we've seen him do other work like Smeagol before, so we know he is a true actor, that there is a performance there underneath all that digital effects. Yeah. You know, the only real human performance in this is by Woody Harrelson. He's the only guy who really has, there's a few other smaller actors, but he's the only human performance in this. He's good in this. Maybe he's not as complicated a villain as I would have liked.
And that's my biggest thing. I definitely wanted them to show... He talks about the things that he's done, which to build up his character, but I would have liked it if they showed that. I guess that's more for spoiler section, but I would have liked to see them show more of his craziness and his cold-bloodedness and the things that he's willing to do instead of just saying it. But I think that if they just spent a couple more minutes on his character, building him up, make him a better villain, makes the apes so much stronger for overcoming him.
I would have enjoyed a couple more scenes with him.
Yeah.
He kind of came across as like Martin Sheen Light from Apocalypse Now to me a lot.
Right.
And I don't know if it was an intentional nod or if that's just where my mind goes when I see like a commander slowly slipping into the mouth of madness. But
no, I was definitely seeing the whole Marlon Brando Apocalypse Now
He
thing.
does have that backstory with talking about his child, right?
Yeah.
What's happened to his kid and stuff. But that scene is all in exposition, right? There's not a lot of, you really don't feel for the character. We haven't seen him go through everything. He's telling us what he's gone through. So it's not quite as effective. Yeah. And you're right. The title is quite misleading because, you might not be getting the war that you think that you're going to be getting in this movie. In many ways, it kind of reminded me of an escape movie a little bit. Kind
the
of
Great Escape.
I was thinking,
The Ape Escape.
The Great Escape?
I and I agree with you. I don't think there was the physical war, but I think maybe it was more of the internal struggle within Caesar more than anything. It was his inner war. But right. And especially the posters where it's showing apes on horseback with spears and weaponry, and you think, okay, this is the mother of all battles. And it doesn't really play out that way.
Exactly. And it's not that the film is lesser for it. It's different than what I thought it was going to be. That's all. It's still satisfying and still has quite an emotional payoff. It's just not a big spectacle. I thought it was going to be the giant war that we've been promising.
And that might have hurt it with some people because they were expecting this giant war and all that stuff.
And not necessarily that it would have made the film better. I think that is what they were kind of selling. Right.
They were. I mean, they totally were. Every poster, everything they were showing, it was all about the battle. I mean, some of the things that we'll cover in spoilers, where the movie actually went, like none of that was shown in the trailers at all. So Should we just go straight into spoilers?
Yeah, I know. To get into the storyline, we really need to spoil a few things. So, let's spoil this right now. Spoilers! Spoiler! Yeah, I think one of the best things about Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, the second movie, was the relationship with Koba.
Yes.
Between Caesar and Koba, you really had that kind of dynamic between them. And this movie doesn't really have that. You're setting up Woody Harrelson as the villain, but we already know the conflict between man and ape. I love the conflict between ape and ape.
Yes.
That movie had. This movie doesn't really have too much of that. Koba shows up in kind of flashbacks and appearances, but it was just reminding me that's what's kind of missing for the movie.
Yeah. For sure, I did. I thought Woody Harrelson's character was serviceable, but again, just reminded me of kind of a serviceable villain, served his purpose. And I mean, he had an interesting backstory, and there is a payoff as far as the thing he's fighting against and the sacrifices he's made to not become mute and dumb, which is how this disease has progressed, ends up not happening. Like, he ends up becoming the thing that he's fighting against in the end. That was interesting, but yeah, Koba was such a great and memorable villain. Wasn't a cliched ripoff of anything. And to the point where they're paying off things in this movie about Koba. And that's one of the things I actually loved was the revelation of Caesar where he says, maybe I'm a little bit more like Koba than I thought I was.
For sure.
I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, me too.
And even in the second movie, when he said that we're much more like humans than I wanted to admit, and he was basically, Koba was an ape, so he automatically trusted him where he shouldn't have. So things like that, and letting go of hate. There was a lot of really good messages and themes in this movie. Like, there was that one human with the crossbow, that
The guy he saves at the beginning?
Yeah, that he spares, and build Woody Harrelson was to show him be cold-blooded, show him execute a couple of his soldiers, show some of these other soldiers kind of being scared of him, having different thoughts. Show some good humans, right? Like, they showed the little girl, but have some of these soldiers have second thoughts. That way you're making him a stronger villain and showing that not everybody's all bad.
I thought it was interesting, the revelation that Caesar's driven to hate Woody Harrelson's character because of what he's done to him, like robbed him of his family. And then you find out it wasn't even intentional. He's like, you hate me so much. Like, what did I do to you? The people that I killed in the cave, that was your family. Like, just accidental humanity inadvertently bringing about their own downfall. Again, which is like, Ivan, you said they created the virus inadvertently, and that leads to their downfall. So it's a recurring theme.
And didn't he originally thought that he killed Caesar there, didn't he? Because remember when Caesar picked up the radio, he said King Kong is dead.
Right.
So he thought they actually killed Caesar there, but it was his son that he really targeted. He didn't realize it until Caesar showed up, saw those corpses that, he missed. So it definitely had a lot to it. I like that Caesar, even as much a hate-filled as he was and the things that he's done, that they still was showing that how conflicted he was about this. And just showing the whole thing with even the little girl, the little subtle things. When she's looking at him, he just makes his horse go up faster because he doesn't want to look at her. Because she's reminding him that not all people are bad and he's trying to avoid it so he can kind of keep his hate-filled going. So, with her there, he was kind of seeing her. He doesn't want to kill all humans.
Right.
And just the kindness that she's showing to him,
But other than that, she doesn't really have a lot to do
in
the
the
movie.
And I think that also helped the apes that were following Caesar, seeing this little girl there giving him water, bringing him food, showing kindness that those apes are actually not used to seeing that, right? Caesar is used to seeing kindness from humans. They're not. Right. So I think it really helped strengthen his resolve by these apes seeing this, that there are good humans, that they're not all bad.
I was almost expecting Maurice as their...
Oh, I love the character of Maurice.
Yeah, he's fantastic. I almost expected her to be his out one way or another from the story. Like, either he would sacrifice himself for her, or when they first came across her, I almost expected him to just stay behind and care for her. And he's definitely Caesar's conscience and consigliere. There's no question about it. And he's fantastic. And that's one thing I'm really glad I revisited the first two movies before going to this, because there's little things I forgot, and seeing the little moments that start in the first movie, and then there's the payoff in the third movie.
What did you guys think of Bad Ape?
I thought he was interesting. He was the only comedic element in the movie.
Yeah.
If you didn't have him, there'd be zero laughs in this film. Yeah, he served his purpose.
Yeah,
I think he worked.
Yeah, and I enjoyed him, and I was kind of pretty happy that they didn't go use them too much. And the scenes that they use them in, really good. And really...
Yeah, Steve Zahn played him.
Yeah. I was actually, for a while there, I was wondering what happened to Steve Zahn, because he's an actor I always enjoyed.
Yeah, me too.
Have you ever seen Happy Texas?
Yeah.
Anyways, a little segue. But I thought that he served his purpose. And of course, because he grew up in the zoo, he had so much interaction with humans. He has those qualities and kind of, the way that he learned compared to everybody else. He out of the community. He grew up by himself, isolated, and everything that happened.
And I think he represents not only the comedy, but I think he also, if they were to do any sequels, he represents that there are more apes that are surviving on their own out there. Like, it's not just Caesar's tribe. There's a bigger world out there, and if this franchise goes forward, and I don't know if there is a plan for a fourth one, but the opportunity is out there.
And I think that this virus did kind of go worldwide, didn't it? Because it was a simian flu, so as people traveled...
Yeah, they show that at the end of Rise
Yeah.
during the end credits, where there's kind of that map of the world and the
So
virus is being
They
spread.
can easily do movies in between showing apes versus apes, like different tribes, because all these other tribes, they have no idea who Caesar is.
Right.
They have no idea what he's taught these guys and all the values.
The location that they end up at the end to make their base or settlement is the same 68 settlement from the original Charlton Heston movie.
Is it really?
Oh, yeah, you can tell that they
Nice.
framed it that way.
That's
Did you
awesome.
see it as kind of like a lot of Moses imagery?
Not really.
Yeah, one of my friends that saw it with me, he said his leads them to the land. In the end, when the avalanche comes down, it's almost like the Red Sea that comes down, kills everybody.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Then-
It's very Deus Ex Machina
Yeah.
for sure.
And then he brings them to the promised land, but he doesn't get to go there
Right.
himself.
Yeah, shall we talk about that finale? It's like I said before, I was expecting a war between
Yeah.
apes and man, not a war between men and men,
Mhm.
where one convenient landslide and avalanche,
Humanity
knocks off the entire last army on man. I was like, really? That's how they're gonna end this?
Yeah, it was a little underwhelming. That was one moment. There was a couple moments within the movie that I thought maybe it overreached for emotional impact that didn't necessarily work. But yeah, the finale was a little underwhelming for, like I said earlier, for a franchise that up to this point had been so smart and not done the expected thing. It kind of was a contrivance, and
Yeah, it's almost their way of saying, we don't want to do this war, so here it is if you want it, and let's go back to our characters, which we care about. Yeah.
One scene that I thought was pretty intense was when Caesar's first brought in and his son just keeps crying for him and following him.
Right.
yeah.
I thought that was pretty
I thought it was pretty
Yeah.
abrupt, didn't you guys? When there's that moment at the beginning when Caesar makes the break from all the other apes and says,
Yeah.
I'm going on this mission. As soon as he gets to that camp, all the other apes have already been captured and locked up. And you're like, wow, that's really abrupt. I mean, I wasn't sure how that juxtaposition happened, how he could leave those guys so early on, go on his own mission, and by the time he gets there, everybody else has already been
But
captured.
I think they also took a lot of the long way around went. And these guys also have vehicles, right? Whereas these guys had to,
I thought it was a missing scene almost of seeing
Yeah.
what happened there. But
it would have been pretty interesting because you've probably been a lot of deaths. And it was pretty, those scenes in the labor camp when they're forcing the apes to do all those things was pretty intense, I would say, like, because you actually do care about these apes so much.
absolutely. Yeah.
That you're almost like, oh my God, kill the humans, you know?
Yeah, Caesar's got his little I am Spartacus scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. As other little spoiler moments go, did you guys notice that Star Wars moment? It was so deliberately taken from Star Wars when they're first coming up on the prison camp and they're right over the ledge with the binoculars. And they actually
from
go to
Hoth?
from Tatooine in the first Star Wars.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And they're just like, well, I see two things, but I don't see the riders. And all of a sudden,
Yes.
it's got to be
Yeah.
a little homage to that. I thought that was.
I forgot about that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And what did we think about the finale with what happened to Caesar? Did we think that was going to be his ultimate fate?
I think they were always building to that he was going to be a martyr to the cause.
I would
The
say
way
so
it
too.
is,
Yeah,
yeah.
the evolution of that character makes perfect sense.
I think if they had him survive, it would have been a cop-out.
I think if they were ever going to do future installments of this or a sequel, they would just use Caesar's remaining son and have Andy Serkis play him anyways.
Absolutely.
Right.
Cornelius.
I thought it was interesting that his ultimate demise was from that one soldier that he saves at the beginning of the movie. And
Right.
that's the one that, I mean, I was expecting him to ultimately die at some point. I just wasn't sure how. And it seemed a little jarring, like even the impact of that spear into his side there in that snow fortress. But
Yeah. And the entire time I kept thinking that soldier just every time they show him on screen, he has that look on his face when he's almost feeling sorry for what's going on and for the apes. So I was kind of waiting for that. Maybe he might change, but it never happened.
No.
Yeah.
And I'm glad it didn't.
Because it might have been a cop-out or something?
I think so, yeah.
But I guess it would have been because they never developed the character. They never had him do other things where they could have shown that, which I think was a huge mistake. Because they could have done a little bit something there. But overall, I mean, this movie was just so well that so done, so emotional, so everything.
Yeah, exactly. Just because it was different than what I was expecting doesn't mean it's bad in any way. I want to watch it again and see how I feel on a second viewing and watch them all at once as a trilogy, and I just know it's going to be very solid and hold up as a single piece.
I need to watch the originals. It's been so long.
I just watched the 68 version after this, and it still holds up. I wanted to see how they were blending the elements, and I completely forgot how the humans in the original one can't speak either, and why they're mute, and this explains all of those things. It's really seamless how they're blending it for an older film.
And who does Nova grow up to be again? I forgot.
It's the girl that Charlton Heston is with throughout the entire movie. And she doesn't speak a word in it. It's kind of neat how they came up with the name Nova. But.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting.
I thought it was funny. It's like, don't touch that. Don't touch that. Okay, you can have it.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons that this trilogy works so well is that it was never planned as a trilogy. It was obviously planned as future installments, but you can tell that they did each film on its own. Each film was its own original piece, and they said, okay, we're just going to concentrate on this only, finish it off, make a good movie. Then we'll think about what to do next, opposed to trying to map out all of your films at once.
And a whole universe.
Yeah, and I think it really works well that way. It's because each movie is very distinctive, and yet
it is cohesive.
Absolutely, yeah. They mesh well together.
And I think that it was brave on their part, because some of these movies would definitely have put in main human actors that they want you to identify with at all times. But these guys were like, no, the apes are our main characters. We want you to feel for them. And I thought that was a real great choice on them. And some other filmmakers definitely would have taken the easy way out, always giving you that human actor to always gravitate to always identify with them. That's always going to be the hero instead of making Caesar the main guy.
Just like Paul said, it's about the apes first.
Yes.
It's not the Transformers. The apes come first in these movies.
It gives me promise, like Matt Reeves is in charge of the Batman, and that's one thing we've talked about that DC Universe forever is concentrate on getting the movie right. And seeing this trilogy, like you said, like each movie is focused on a certain aspect of the story and does it right. Even though this third installment is in my mind the weakest, it's still a really good movie. And if we can get a Batman movie on par with any one of these three movies, I'll be happy.
Oh yeah,
for sure. He seems like a good choice for it.
Yeah, and
I agree.
Yeah, like you just said, even though it's the weakest of the three, still amazing, which just shows how strong this entire series is.
Yeah, it would be a very minor adjustment on my scale as to, where this movie falls into place. It's, I still highly recommend it. And compared to the other two, I just makes it even better to highly recommend this entire trilogy.
Yeah, I probably want to watch them all over again and kind of go from there to decide, but oh, wow. It's almost like you would have to watch like a comedy between to just kind of lighten it up, just
that's what Steve Zahn's for.
Project X with Matthew Broderick.
Yeah, but I mean, they really kind of hit you at times, right? Just
MVP.
That's a better monkey movie. Or the Any Which Way But Loose movies, if you want.
Yeah, there you go. What's the one with Matt LeBlanc and the monkey?
I think it's called Ed?
Or Eddie or something?
I don't know. I haven't seen
whatever.
it. Yeah.
Neither have I.
So obviously we're all fans of the film for sure. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's too bad Darren can see it. I know he's a big fan of this franchise. And anyways, we should probably bring Darren back for the Rant and Rave segment soon.
Swing on in, Darren.
Okay. Yeah, we all love the War for the Planet of the Apes, and we recommend it. Okay, let's move on to the Rant and Rave. Cool. Darren, you're back with us. Why don't you begin?
All right. In keeping with the Hitchcockian tone that came up in discussing Martin Landau's death, so I wanted to just mention a few Hitchcock films that I've been catching up on. Mentioned several times on this show, and you guys all know that I'm such a Hitchcock worshiper. There's a small number of films that are very obscure, very hard to track down and view, so I've been kind of doing that lately, catching up on a few. It's hard to call any of them raves. If
You're talking about his 1920s and 30s?
20s and 30s, yeah.
Everything
everything pre-Hollywood, like
pre-Man Who Knew Too Much.
Yeah, I mean, the second film he ever shot was The Lodger, right? Which is one of his masterpieces.
Sure.
So,
okay.
But
and Blackmail's really good too.
Oh yeah, there's several films from the British period that are great. Some that are good, but he was under contract and he had to fulfill his contracts in the British period. So there's some duds, and there's something good about all of them though. So the ones I've caught up on are The Pleasure Garden, which is one that I thought was lost. I didn't know.
No, I haven't seen that one.
And I found that there's still prints of that, and so I caught that.
What was the print like?
It was not bad. Yeah, it was good. It had been restored. I don't know if I can say this. A lot of these are in the public domain anyways, but it's YouTube that I'm watching all these folks. Like, I couldn't find them over the years on DVD or VHS, so make that what you will.
You got to find it wherever you can
exactly.
find it.
Yeah.
For something this obscure. The Pleasure Garden was kind of a lame melodrama, but what I'll say about all of these that I'm about to bring up are Hitchcock finds a great visual touch or some sort of signature scene to put in every one of his movies, even the weaker ones. So they're all kind of worth it for that. Next one is Waltzes from Vienna, also known as Strauss's Great Waltz in some markets, a biopic about Johann Strauss II, the Waltz King. And watch out, because the better print on YouTube, it freezes several times. And so I was going back to the lesser print to fill in those scenes and just gave up and said, I'm just going to watch the lesser print because it was happening so often. Yeah, so this kind of heavily, I'm sure, I haven't read that much about Strauss's life, but heavily fictionalizes, I'm sure, the creation of the Blue Danube Waltz and Johann Strauss's rise to fame in Vienna. It mostly comes across as a silly, goofy comedy. It doesn't work that well. But it has a great final climactic scene where he's premiering the piece and there's no dialogue, no sound effects. Everything dramatically in that scene is told through Hitchcock's editing and performances he gets out of the characters, and it's a very good scene. After that, I checked out Downhill, which, no, I can't remember the name. It has an alternate title, too. You might find it other, something like The Boys Go Back or The Boys Come Back or something. It's about two college friends in England, and one of them just has a ruddy string of bad luck, and it stars Ivor Novello, the actor who, of course, made The Lodger so good, but this is not a very good film either, and kind of boring and dull. It's silent, whereas Waltzes from Vienna is a sound picture. Check it out if you're a big Hitchcock fan, otherwise you don't need to see Downhill. After that, I came across a movie called Mary, which I hadn't even heard of. What is this doing on the Hitchcock filmography? I did a little digging and found out that it was a German language version of Murder, shot by Hitchcock himself. So unlike Todd Browning's Dracula, which was shot by a different director for the Spanish version, Hitchcock shot both Murder and Mary. Mary with a German cast and German version of the script. Unlike the famous Dracula, it's not available with subtitles, so I was watching it in German with just my memory of Murder to go on. And it seems to stick from what I remember of Murder. I've seen Murder a couple times. It has a fun final scene when I don't think I will be revealing too much, spoiling too much when I say the real killer gets his comeuppance at some point. And
does he still use that same scene with the knife?
That's in Blackmail.
Oh, okay.
Which is that's a great scene. But anyways, so if you're an English speaker, just check out Murder, because Murder is a pretty good film. If you're a Hitchcock nut, hey, check out Mary too. He did direct it as well, so. I followed that up with The Fighting Generation, a quick propaganda short he did in the 1940s. Wasn't even familiar with this one as well. I knew he did, I think it's called Aventure Malgache, and then Bon Voyage, two French propaganda films he did. I've only been able to track down Aventure Malgache, but The Fighting Generation he did in the United States, and it's in English, and stars Jennifer Jones, and is actually shot by Greg Toland, of all people.
Oh, wow.
At 3 minutes, it's not a bad little propaganda film, and kind of fun to watch. I found it on YouTube paired with another film called A Message of Importance, another propaganda film, so you might have to type in A Message of Importance for it to turn up. Anyways, about 6 minutes for the two of them, 5 or 6 minutes. Quick watch. And then lastly, The White Shadow I just checked out, or White Shadows, I think is the correct name. Hitchcock is credited on this as editor, assistant director, set designer, and it also bears the credit Hitchcock scenario from a screenplay by Michael Morton. I'm often confused with these old writing credits. What does it mean to have written the scenario?
Because Alfred Hitchcock started just doing titles, right?
Exactly. Title designer and set designer, and then he kind of moved up as editor, assistant director. Most of those films are lost.
Is
White
this a
Shadows.
complete copy?
No, it's 40 minutes, constitutes about half of the film. And
I have the same copy.
Yeah, a couple of reels turned up in New Zealand, I guess, a few years back, and they restored it. And it's silly, but it was so ridiculous that I was really enjoying it and wish I had the full movie to watch. Just the plot turns in this movie were absolutely nonsensical. Like, why did the dad turn into a vagrant? And why didn't the girl just tell the guy about her twin sister instead of leading him on for years that she was the twin sister who disappeared? And then when the twin sister inevitably turns up, she doesn't know how to face Teresa him and tell him, like, no, I'm not Teresa, I'm so-and-so. I wish it was the full film because it was so ridiculous. I could have seen all of it. Yeah, that's what I got for this week. Kind of a mixed bag from some of these old Hitchcock films, but if you're a cinephile, they're all worth checking out.
Wow, so how are you doing on your completion?
As far as Hitchcock, of course, The Mountain Eagle has no known prints. I think one 10-minute reel or less is turned up somewhere. I haven't been able to find it to view.
But you've seen stuff like Manxman and The Ring and...
Yep. Yeah, anything else from
Jamaica Inn.
Jamaica Inn.
I haven't seen a few of those still.
Jamaica Inn is quite good. Charles Lawton is very good in it. And,
just the print has been awful.
The print is awful. I'm straining to understand what they're saying in that film with the bad quality and the English accents, but it's a good film. I like it. It's different for Hitchcock, a weird sort of historical take, like not the typical mystery or suspense film.
Yeah, before he had such huge success with crime and thrillers, he was all over the map.
And The Ring is a boxing pick, and it's pretty good. And once again, has some great visual ideas in there. Paul, you always call yourself such a visually oriented viewer, and there's something in every Hitchcock film which is just visually great, even the lesser films. So I'd always recommend his films.
All the ones I've seen, I've found, very engrossing as far as even just how he constructs a scene, or there's always something that's a little different than what you've seen before.
Yeah, for sure. Just quickly, I will say, if you're unfamiliar with his early period, the British period, the 6 generally recognized masterpieces are The Lodger, The 39 Steps, Young and Innocent, The Lady Vanishes, The Man Who Knew Too Much, and then I guess Sabotage would be considered the 6th.
Sabotage is good.
And then there's a lot of other good ones, too, from the period, like The Ring, and, if you ever get a chance to see Rich and Strange, that's such a crazy film, too. Comedy, a rare comedy from Hitchcock, and murder and blackmail. Anyways, I've ranted and raved about Hitchcock enough, but I'm a big fan, and I can't recommend his films enough to everyone.
Yes. I don't even know what to say. Alfred Hitchcock is one of the giants of cinema, and he's on the Mount Rushmore of directors for me.
Yes, good way to put it.
Yeah. Okay. Paul, what do you got?
I have a couple things to talk about. I have a Netflix series, and I also have a series of films to catch up the listeners on. First off, I'm going to start with a rave. Have any of you guys seen the Netflix series Master of None, created by Aziz Ansari?
I saw the first season.
My wife watched the first season.
Yeah. I just recently finished the second season. The premise of the show is a 30-something actor of Indian descent is in New York. It's a story all about his experiences as a actor in New York with his friends, with his family, and everything that happens. I love this show. I mean, some of the acting can be a little wooden, but part of that is that he gets his actual parents to play his actual parents. They're great. The way they play off each other, they're not going to win any awards for their acting, but it comes off as so genuine and fun. Just his interactions with all of his friends are totally believable. And one of the things I love about this show is it never goes where you think it is gonna go. Like, you think, okay, they're building up this moment, and they take a complete left turn as to where you think it's going. So I really liked the first season. As I mentioned, just recently finished the second season, and this show does a lot of very bold, creative things, which I love. Like, the first episode of season 2 is all black and white, and one of my favorite episodes of the whole series is, I think it's episode 3 of season 2, and it's all about different groups of people in New York, different backgrounds, not even main characters, and how they kind of interact with one another and pass in and out of each other's lives. And you don't see things like that very often. So I loved it. And I thought both seasons were really strong, and there may not be a third season. He was asked if he would do a third season, and he said he's kind of not in that place in his life anymore. So it still could happen, but it's not a sure thing. So I loved it. I thought it was great. It's not, I think it gets wrongly categorized as a comedy. I think it's more of a really good character study with lighthearted and funny moments. But if you go into it expecting to be rolling around on the ground laughing, you're not coming in with a realistic expectation.
Yeah, and Aziz is such a funny guy, but the couple of episodes that I overheard as I was playing lame computer games while my wife watched them, he's the reason for the show. He's such a charming guy, and I've always been a fan of his. There's one that was really just going through his budding relationship with a woman, and I thought to myself, okay, that's kind of what this show must be. And then I think the next episode, or 2 episodes down the road or whatever it was, had nothing to do with her anymore. So it just seems to be not what you think it's going to be.
Yeah, and they get all kinds of crazy guest stars. Like last episode, I was talking about how Kimmy Schmidt gets a lot of really high-end guest stars. This does too. Like Martin Scorsese has like a 5 or 10 second, appearance in one episode.
You're going to say 5 or 10 minutes. Like,
No.
wow.
No, but like just faces you recognize that you're like, holy cow.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, it just comes off as such a genuine show and definitely worth checking out because it's just not like anything I've watched, especially in a quote-unquote comedy format. And like I said, I hesitate to call it a comedy, but that's how, for whatever reason, it's categorized. But definitely great character study and charming as hell. Very creative and unlike anything I've seen. So I really liked it.
Excellent.
So strong rave. And then the next, early on in the podcast, I talked about my progression through the Star Trek original show.
Oh, Jen.
I'm sorry, Jen. You continue.
Skip ahead a few minutes, Jen.
There you go.
I'll make it quick. I've been progressing through the series. I've seen the original series. I've seen the cartoon. And then my next foray was into just the movies with only the original cast. So only movies 1 through 6. I found it kind of like watching the show, really, where the tone and subject matter was kind of all over the place, dealing with like, oh, there's an invader on the ship or whatever. And I'd say mostly really enjoyable. I mean, loved Wrath of Khan, of course. Everybody loves Wrath of Khan. For me, the surprise was number 6, The Final Frontier.
The Undiscovered Country is number 6.
Oh, sorry. You're right. Yeah, because Final Frontier was
don't
awful.
Start praising The Final Frontier.
No, that's awful. Like, right from the get-go, you can tell that it's totally different, and it's William Shatner directing it because it's goofy and just oddball and not good. Like, I couldn't wait for that one to be over. Like, it's
I haven't seen that since
awful.
the theater when I was like 12 years old. And
Yeah.
I liked it when I was 12, but I can't imagine watching it again.
Yeah, so are you saying that you're seeing these films for the first time for the most part?
No, I've seen them all before, but some of them I've rewatched and others I had just seen them once. Like, I've seen the first 4 multiple times when I was a kid, and then just kind of as years went on, just didn't see a lot of the later films as much. So yeah, I think I only saw the 6th one, Undiscovered Country. I think I only saw that once in the theater, and I remembered not a lot about it. Fantastic. That's my second favorite of the original cast.
That one's really good too.
It has such heart and it nails all the characters. It's them at their best. And I actually got a lump in my throat at the end when they're talking about it being their final mission. And, this has been the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. I'm like, you really are saying goodbye to these characters. And yeah, you'll see some of them later on in different TV series or popping up in movies, etc. But, to see this whole cast together and on their final mission.
Right, there's no chance that any of them is going to show up in the next movie. Oh, lame.
Yeah.
So yeah, Christopher Plummer is the bad guy in number 6 too, isn't he?
Yeah. General Chang, and he does really well. And yeah, it was really good. Like I said, after watching number 5 and being completely disappointed with it, like there's a couple charming scenes here or there, but ultimately you just leave it going, oh, what has this franchise become? And then to rebound so strong with, like I said, my second favorite of this series.
Who was the same director as number 2, eh?
Well, then that
Nicholas
makes
Myers.
sense.
Yeah.
So was the General Chang that Christopher Plummer played the same General Chang that appeared in season 3?
I think he was different.
Just same last name.
Yeah, I think so. Because the way it plays out in the movie, it's not like they know each other at all. Like they've never met or anything.
Because if that was the case, they definitely would have known each other from the way this episode was.
Yeah, no, they're being introduced to each other. But yeah, I thought it was very strong. I loved the motion picture, the first one. It's very much a slow burn and not for everybody, but I like it as kind of just hard science fiction. I like Search for Spock, Voyage Home. I'm not sure how much that stands the test of time.
I still like The Whales.
It's charming. It's
and
charming
the comedy
movie.
works in that one too. As much as you're not really wanting comedy from Star Trek,
Nuclear Vessels.
I think it works. Yeah.
It's better than Marshmallows.
Yeah, 1 and 3. Yeah, they are weaker, but I think they get kind of an unfair bad rap. I do think there's a lot of good stuff in 1 and 3.
Me too.
Yeah. Me too. I honestly, out of all 6, I'd say the only one that you should absolutely skip is the 5th one.
Although that has a great score by Jerry Goldsmith, so
Yeah,
I gotta say that much.
I mean, if you want to, I wouldn't discourage you from watching it. Just go into it with really, really tempered expectations. It's by far the weakest of the original cast movies. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed getting back into that universe and revisiting the cast again, and it's interesting to see them age and how they play the characters off having aged, and all in all, we're checking out. Sorry, Jen.
Okay, so that was Star Trek, the original movies, and Master of None Season 2. Okay, Ivan, what do you got?
Well, I got one of each. So my rant this week will be Keeping Up with the Joneses. I watched this because it was there, honestly. From the trailers, I wasn't really that interested, and I really should have just kept going with that.
Because you lost the remote?
Yeah, it was... You know what? This movie was just not very good. It was very predictable. The jokes were lame. The same kind of jokes you've probably seen like 100 times in all these kinds of movies.
And who's in it, and what's it about?
So it's Zach Galifianakis, John Hamm, Isla Fisher, and Gal Gadot. And what it's about is that John Hamm and Gal Gadot are spies that moved in next door to Zach Galifianakis' family. And basically, he and his wife, they're like, oh, there's something off about these people. And they get in there, and then they find out. And then, of course, they kind of get caught up in the adventure of spying. And it's really just not that good. The only good thing about this movie was John Hamm, because he just seems so effortless in this role. He can easily just go from like the full range he goes in there, from being the badass action guy to just a likable next door neighbor guy to whatever. It was just seemed like he was putting no effort. Everybody else was terrible. Zach Galifianakis was just like, his shtick is done, I think, in my opinion. Isla Fisher was just there, and Gal Gadot, honestly, if I saw this movie before Wonder Woman, I would have been a lot more concerned about it.
Right.
Because of the acting ability, but yeah, it just wasn't a good movie.
So that's a big skip.
Yes. And the next movie is What We Do in the Shadows, which is, for people that don't know, a New Zealand mockumentary about vampires, basically.
From the director of Thor Ragnarok.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a fun movie. I honestly don't think it was as funny as some of the reviews made it out to be. They said it was like one of the best movies and all this. It was a fun watch. There was things here and there that was kind of silly and didn't really work for me, but overall, I recommend it for people. You know, if you just feel like watching a comedy, give it a chance.
If you're tired of the vampire genre, there's a lot of clever stuff here that kind of reinvigorate it, aren't there?
Yeah.
I would say, one in every 3 or 4 jokes works.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a total... some said it was one of the better mockumentaries of all time. I wouldn't say that.
No, neither would I, but it was a fun
watch. It's worth a watch, and it's pretty short. It's like 80 minutes.
Yeah, the thing that really didn't work for me, and for the most part, which was a big joke in this movie, was these guys are all hundreds of years old, but they don't know anything about the current time or the current technology or anything. And they're saying, well, because they can't go outside. It's like, but there is a nightlife. They can go out after sunlight. And you would think after all these years, they would learn about what's going on in the world around them. But they were all kind of stuck in the time when they became vampires.
They got to spend their nights feeding. They can't be researching new technologies, I guess.
Yes, but they go out in public, right?
I loved the Nosferatu, of the quartet who...
Oh, Peter?
Yeah.
He's in the basement.
He's like 15,000 years old or something. That guy, every time he opened his mouth was wonderful.
So some things here, it was worth a watch, but I wouldn't say it was great in any means, but I still was a fun watch.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
It's fun and original, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's on Netflix now, so it's cheap. It's free to watch if you've got a subscription. It's added to my watch list.
Okay, so that was What We Do in the Shadows and Keeping Up with the Joneses.
Yes.
All right. One rant, one rave. Okay, what do I got? Let's get this one over with. I finally cut up the movie Passengers, directed by Morton Teidlum.
Oh, wow.
Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence. It's also got Lawrence Fishburne and Michael Sheen in it for a little bit. I think everybody knows what this is about, or at least how it was sold.
Yeah.
It was sold on the premise of, I'll give you the synopsis. After a malfunction, 2 passengers on board a spacecraft traveling to a distant colony planet wake up alone 90 years before they reach their destination. Okay. This movie isn't awful, for one thing. It's not as bad as everybody has claimed it is. I think it had a lot of reshoots, and this movie went through a lot of directors and a lot of stars over the years, so it's... you guys ever heard of The Blacklist?
Yeah.
The Blacklist?
Yeah, the blacklist for script writing in Hollywood.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, every year they announce what they think are the best unproduced screenplays in Hollywood. And this script made the list a few times. So obviously it had some potential. I think the ending was probably massively rewritten. At least I hope it was. My big problem with the movie is it takes such a left turn in the third act. You just can't get behind it. And if it would have actually gone through with the only way that they could have possibly ended this movie, I probably would have recommended it. Because it's well acted and well shot. It has a good look to it. But boy, do they... Okay, I'm just going to... If anybody's listening out there and they don't want to be spoiled by this, better turn it off because I'm going to go to town. Okay. At the beginning, Chris Pratt, he wakes up by himself. So he has a whole year of deciding, am I going to be alone on this ship? And after about a year of complete isolation and loneliness, he's like, okay, I'm going to wake someone up. And he finds this one girl and he thinks about doing it. And he goes through weeks of don't do it. Don't do it. Brushing his teeth. Don't do it. Walking in the halls. Don't do it. But he does it. And he wakes her up. And throughout the movie, they have this romance.
At least a wise choice. If you're going to wake one up, wake up Jennifer Lawrence.
So they have a brief romance, and of course he lies to her about the conditions, and eventually tells her the truth about what happened, and she doesn't want to speak to him again. You've murdered me, is what she says. Justifiably. So that's setting up for the third act, and then something goes wrong with the ship. The ship's going to break down, and everyone on board is going to die. And it's up to both of them to save it. So the only way that this movie could possibly end is with Chris Pratt sacrificing himself for the ship. A big climactic moment, and he's gone. But they fix the ship, and everyone's alive. And now 1 year later, and Jennifer Lawrence is by herself. And we close up on her, and she says, don't do it. Mm-hmm. She's been put into the same situation that he's been put in.
Yeah, a little run of the mill, but that could work.
That's the only way to end this movie. Yeah. How do you think that they ended this movie?
He saves the day. She forgives him to live together.
Happily ever after. And not only that.
Do they wake up everybody and have a big party?
They make it to the final destination.
Oh,
they learn how to go back to... It's so cheap.
That's a cop-out.
Yeah, it's huge cop-out.
It's such a cop-out. And it's just frustrating that you could have made something decent and had some sort of poetic ending, some sort of artistic choice. Mm-hmm. It might have been obvious the way it's going, but at least it would have been satisfying.
Because I wanted to see this. Like the original trailer, I loved the intriguing style. Exactly. Yeah. It looked intriguing. I wanted to see it, and I was going to see it despite the crappy reviews, but...
I hope I haven't spoiled it for you.
I'll never watch this.
Sorry to all you guys out there. it's...
I don't know. To me, just the plot seemed very basic. The trailers seem to have kind of played it up that it was more of a... There's some mystery to it or something like that, but then when the reviews came out that it was just like a space romance or something.
Do you guys know the video essayist Nerdwriter? He does a lot of interesting pieces. He did one on Passengers and talked about what the film might have been like if it was re-edited and perhaps if it started with both of them waking up and not knowing that he was up early a year before she was, and the mystery. I don't know if that would have made the movie any better. I still think you had to end it the way that the one that I came up with. You know, if you're seeing the movie and you want another take on what it could have been, that's an interesting piece you could check out. But I can't recommend it.
Pass on Passengers.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, you're right, Paul. Just the cop out. I haven't seen a cop out like that in a long time in a movie. And it's too bad. All right, my next choice is just as bad, but but much sillier and a little bit of fun. It is The Great Wall, starring Matt Damon, Pedro Pascal, Tian Jing, and Willem Dafoe. The synopsis: Matt Damon plays a trader smuggler who has journeyed to China in search of their mysterious black powder and finds himself behind the Great Wall, caught in the middle of a battle against ancient monstrous beasts. Yes, this is the movie that Jimmy Kimmel at the Oscars famously said the movie Matt Damon chose Manchester over to do the Chinese ponytail movie. Yeah, it's not very good. I'll tell you that. The only reason I really wanted to see this movie is it's directed by Zhang Yimou. And if you haven't heard his name, he is probably China's most foremost filmmaker. He's been making movies since about the mid-'80s, since China opened up. And for me, he's China's greatest filmmaker. And I'm such a proponent of the auteur theory. We've never really talked about that before on the podcast.
Not a lot
but basically, the idea that I follow individual filmmakers and their filmographies. The auteur theory proposes the idea that every film has a distinctive voice of the director behind it. No matter how many hundreds of people work on a movie, it is still crystallization of that director's.
It's a collaborative art, but ultimately it's the
Right.
director's vision that you're
And I've
seeing.
always believed in that. We could spend a whole
there's certain
half an
cult
hour
of
arguing about
actors
this.
that will say, well, no, like a Jimmy Stewart movie is always a Jimmy Stewart movie,
Right.
but no, not
Right. The great critics,
really.
Andrew Serkis, who came up with this idea, and Pauline Kael used to argue about this constantly over whether there was any validity towards it. But
Mhm.
I've always believed in the auteur theory. If a director makes a movie I love, I'll watch everything that director has made. It's kind of my rule. So that brings me back to this one in Zhang Yimou. You probably know him from his more popular films like Hero, with Jet Li, and Curse of the Golden Flower.
Yeah, I think that's what it's
That
called.
one.
Curse of the
And,
Golden Flower.
House of Flying Daggers.
Daggers, yeah.
Right, all of his kind of martial arts extravaganzas. Those are his weakest films to me. For me, the ones I love are Judo, Raise the Red Lantern, The Story of Guizhou, To Live, his comedies, Happy Times, Not One Less is terrific. I mean, Kelly Loves The Road Home. One of her favorite movies is one of his. So anyways, this is a great filmmaker. This is not a great film, though. If you liked Hero and movies like that, you'll probably get behind it. It's pretty silly. It has some okay action in it. The beasts in it are boring. You know, that CGI program that they have with kind of that massive horde of zombies that we've seen in like World War Z and stuff.
Mhm.
There's a lot of that in movies lately where it's just kind of millions of things coming at you and you can't distinguish between any of them. There's a lot of that in this movie, and it's all kind of boring visually. Matt Damon's doing his best in this movie. Willem Dafoe is kind of wasted. Pedro Pascal from Game of Thrones. He, the guy from Dorne, who fought the mountain.
Yeah,
He's actually
Oberyn.
really, right. He's really good in this.
He's a good
He's
actor.
doing his best in this too.
The leaps of logic that are required in some of these movies, like if there's millions upon millions of these monstrous beasts.
Oh my God, I know.
Where are they living when they're not attacking the Great
But it's
Wall?
not but it's the secret. It's like Matt Damon has seen one of the creatures at the beginning, and we're like, can we let him go? He has seen our secret. And then later, it's like a giant panoramic shot of millions of
Everybody's
these things.
seen
It's
him
like,
now.
How could this be a secret? Give me a break.
And who are you keeping it a secret from? Like,
Right.
don't you want as much help as you can get
Exactly.
to defend yourselves from them?
possible, yeah.
And how could it be the secret if it's attacking outside your country, right? If the
Yeah.
wall
Yeah,
is to
they're
protect it.
attacking from without. Like this, why do you want to keep that a secret?
I don't know. It's very well. You can't hold this film up to any kind of scrutiny. That's for sure. Yeah, I can't recommend it. Maybe you want to see it for free if you're hungover.
Or high.
Yeah, maybe. It's
If you lose the remote, Ivan, maybe.
Yeah, it was there.
I think I enjoyed it a little more than the Keanu Reeves movie 47 Ronin, but that's not saying much.
Oh.
That was kind of a waste of time too. Yeah, I can't get behind either of my choices this week. Passengers and The Great Wall. 2 misses.
Well, thank you for warding people off of them.
Nah, you got it.
Would you watch either of those over Star Trek 5?
Yeah, they're both better than this. Wow, that's a really bad movie. Okay, that's it for Rant and Rave. Let's wrap it up for another week. And next time we'll be back to talk about Christopher Nolan's new film, Dunkirk. Until then, please subscribe and give us a rating on our iTunes, Apple Podcasts account, and YouTube accounts. You can also like and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if interested, you can always comment and search for our past reviews on our website at whyweseemovies@libsyn.com. Thanks for listening.
So long.
Ciao, ciao.
I am an ape man. I think I'm so educated and I'm so civilized, 'cause I'm a strict vegetarian. But with the overpopulation and inflation and starvation and the crazy politics